Hi, everyone. Welcome to Service and Sacrifice. This is Justin, and I'm joined by Anthony. This is our first episode, so we're just going to do some introductions. We're both Army veterans. My MOS was 13 Mike, which is MLRS, Multiple Launch Rocket Systems crew member. Anthony, what were you?
So I was on the other side of that equation. I was a 13 Papa, which is Multiple Launch Rocket Systems Fire Direction Control Specialist. A bunch of words that mean we give the information to the launcher crew members, which Justin was.
I actually never knew what that stood for.
Well, it's a lot of words for no reason.
I didn't know you guys had like an official long title like we did. My current profession is I'm a product manager, and I was in from 2010 to 2013, so I've been out for quite some time.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about how quickly it's gone by. I was in from 2011 to 2016, and right now I'm a quality assurance manager for a construction company that builds cell towers and does upgrades on cell towers for T-Mobile, Verizon, TNT, all the big carriers.
Yeah, funny story about civilian job postings, and I won't ask you to answer it, but anytime I see quality assurance manager, I already know the position's going to be very overworked. But we'll move on from that topic. Some hobbies before we talk more about our service. For fun, I like to go to the gym, go to the range and shoot. I play video games, even though I try to get that hobby under control because you can spend a lot of time in front of the TV. I like to watch movies. And lastly, I have 2 dogs, a Husky mix and a Belgian Malinois. So I like to play and chill with them.
That sounds like overworked, those 2 dogs together.
Well, the Huskies, it's funny because everybody asks me, like, is the Husky super wild? And she's mixed with like so many smaller breeds. Like she's like actually the laziest dog ever. And she's more like a cat.
Gotcha. So some of the stuff that I like to do, I'm a big fan of comedy. I love watching new comedy specials that come out. I really enjoy watching content on YouTube that teaches you something new. I'm also a video game player, although much more casual than I used to be in past years. I've also gotten into the new fad sport, pickleball, recently, but it's been a fun thing to go out and get some exercise without being bored by standing on a treadmill for an hour. And then I have a dog as well. I have an Australian Shepherd that's 4 years old, and just never ending energy with these dogs. So I got to try to spend as much time as possible getting her energy worked out of the system.
Yep. At least you're in California, which I guess we should have mentioned, where you have, I'm assuming, mostly nice weather to like go for walks and stuff.
Yeah, we've been in the stage where it will just rain without warning a lot. But usually from about now, which we're in the beginning of March, all the way through September, it's pretty nice. Other than it can get pretty hot during the summer, but no snow.
So I'm in Connecticut, which is significantly colder. At least 6 months out of the year are just like so cold that you can't really do anything unless you like winter hobbies and sports like skiing and snowboarding and going, down hills on a sled and stuff. Other than that, like I'm not going out in 15 degrees. Just not doing that.
No, I lived in Pennsylvania for a year, and that was enough living in the snow for me. After that, I said never again.
Yep. So I'll let you go first. Why did you join? And then why did you get out?
So I joined because I was just out of options. I was working at a job that I really, really hated. I was making probably, 400 to 500 cold calls a day trying to sell people antivirus software at an enterprise level. And I was living with friends of my family. I had a horrible, crappy 1986 Honda Civic that barely worked. And I didn't have any plan. I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I just decided I'm going to go enlist, and that's what I'm going to do. And so I went through with it, the whole process. I went into the recruiter and they were trying to sell me, and I'm like, sign me up. What's the next step so I can figure out what I'm doing? Because I got to leave this situation that I'm in now.
Why'd you pick Army?
So I originally wanted to go into the Air Force, but even with my ASVAB scores, I think I had a 96. They said it would be a year before I even could go to get into a basic training slot. And the Army, when I went in there and they saw my score, they were like, "Oh, we can ship you out in 3 weeks." That's
my next obvious question is, if you scored so well on your ASVAB, why did you pick one of the lowest ASVAB MLRS?
So when I went through MEPS, you know how they run you through all the tests for everything, and they do the color blindness test, and it's like a calendar kind of thing with cards on it that they flip through, and on each card there's like a circle with a bunch of little dots that are in different colors. And what you have to do is tell the person who's administering the test to you what is inside the circle. So it's usually like a number. And they showed me the first one, which tests for red-green deficiency. And I immediately was like, oh, that's a 4 right there. Yep. Clear as day. So what they didn't mention is that the next cards that test for the other chromatic disorders, it's not as stark of a contrast. You have to kind of look a little bit carefully. And so, me in this situation, just not even grasping what was going on. The next card comes up. I didn't immediately see a contrasting number, and I was like, nothing. I don't see anything. They're like, okay, flip. Nothing. And so they classify me as colorblind, even though I'm not. So the original job that I was going to do was going to be radar repair. But instead, I ended up as 13.5.
Very interesting. Have you been to like civilian doctors since to confirm that you're not colorblind?
I don't need to go to a doctor. Like, I can easily distinguish colors.
Okay. Yeah. I was given the option of 13 mic, but I remember the same test, and I'm fairly certain that I am like at least semi colorblind. So it worked out great. And then the harder answer here, why did you get out?
Well, when I was probably at the 2.5, 3 year mark, I already knew. I was like, this was a great escape from the situation that I was in, but this is not for me. And, I learned a lot of valuable lessons and skills, but I just knew that wasn't what I wanted to do. I wasn't going to stay in for 20 years. And in fact, if I hadn't stupidly signed a contract for 5 years to get a whole $5,000 bonus.
Yeah, that was dumb.
Yeah. I would have been out right at the 3 year mark, and that would have been it. I did not enjoy the part of the military where someone who is clearly far less intelligent than you is commanding you to do things that make no sense. I think that was the most frustrating part of the military.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it was a rude awakening when you came back to civilian life and you found out it's the same, but the good news is you are not forced to wear shorts in the wintertime. So, as someone who got out right on the 3 year mark, because I picked the lowest contract length that you could do, which was 3 years. And I think they just switched it, because I went in like December of 2009, ship out February 2010. Like, I think like within that year, they don't do 2 years anymore. They used to do 2, if you remember. But I think you only got like 70% or something of all your benefits. So it's not the same amount of like GI Bill, like months and everything, which I still probably would have picked if it was an option. But
Yeah, and when I went through the lowest, lesser option was 3 years. That was the minimum that you could do. And then it went all the way up to 8. Which, who goes in there and signs an 8-year contract? I'm sure people do, but
I did not fully comprehend the whole concept of, even if you sign up for 3, you're still technically like signed up for 8 because the remaining 5 would be IRR, which some people get like called up and have to do things, but like I was not at all. So that was sick. But in regards to why I joined, why I got out, I joined because I was 19 and I was not doing well in school and couldn't really hold like basic retail positions. Like it just sucked. Like minimum wage at the time was like $7.50 or $8 or something.
yeah.
Which you couldn't do much with back then at all. And then just like you, probably slightly somewhere between 1 year and 1.5 years. I don't know which range it was closer to. I knew definitively, I was like, this sucks. And yes, it had to do with my unit, and it had to do with my platoon sergeant and my first sergeant and my BC. Like, it was collectively just a bad situation. And it's funny talking to like more senior NCOs at the time. They were like, oh, yeah, this unit has like notoriously just a bad rap, which was funny. But yeah, so I was like, I just got to count down the time. And before you knew it, I saved up 54 days of terminal leave and I was out.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the same thing for me because 1, we were in the same unit for a while, and then 2,
it was better before you joined, by the way.
Well, that's what people love to tell me.
When did you get to 75th?
August of 2011. So right after the Djibouti deployment.
August of 2011. I got there in, I think June or July of 2010. So I was there for like a full year before. Yeah. So there was like a separate unit before you got there. And then when all the newer guys got there, the unit like disbanded and kind of went in separate directions. So you may not know some of the individuals I'm referring to.
Well, I can vaguely recall there being some kind of like the motor pools were moved and like different units were deactivated and new ones were reactivated. I remember all that stuff being talked about, but when I got there, I was so new to everything. I didn't really understand fully what was going on or what had happened in the past. But when I got sent to Korea, that was the nail in the coffin. I had the worst time in Korea. And that's when I definitively knew, as soon as this 5-year window is up, I'm gone. There will be no talk of re-enlisting, nothing. I don't care if you give me $100,000 bonus, I'm not staying.
100,000 is definitely more than 5. Moving on to the next subject here. For those watching who are probably thinking, what is service and sacrifice? It started a little over a year ago, like 15 months ago. I made a newsletter on a platform called Substack, and I named it Service and Sacrifice. And I just started writing about military and veteran topics, veteran affairs, things that like civilians don't really like comprehend, military stories, and like how the VA works, because a common misconception that civilians have is that like these benefits are so great, which they're good, and I'm grateful I have them, but they could be a lot better if the government executed them correctly. So I just started writing about those things, and most of those frustrations came because after I think like a decade of being out, I finally was like, hey, I'll take advantage of free healthcare, right? Like, how bad could it be? It's free. Well, after multiple times going there, I got pretty frustrated, and I'm like, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to write it down. And that's what I did. That's where we are. But you don't use VA, right?
Yeah, that's kind of how I think through some of our discussions that we had about some of these things, you had turned me on to the newsletter several months ago, and we kind of, I think, reconnected at that time, and we went back and forth, on Facebook Messenger, and just kind of reminisced a little bit, talked about some stuff, but then I found out more about the things that you were working on and what you were doing, and it made me think back to when I got out and I had no plan whatsoever. My plan was find a job that pays me money so I can eat. And then beyond that was find a job that pays me the most money that I can make. It was not really looking into how I could leverage benefits that I had earned through my time in service. I struggled way too long with getting my disability rating if I had just gone and found someone to talk to about it, I probably would have gone much smoother and much quicker. And I know there's lots of things I left on the table. I didn't understand how to use the GI Bill to its full potential, that you're not just tied into, oh, you have to go to a 4-year college and that's it. So, I want to kind of get some of this stuff out there online. It'll help someone who's in a similar situation now or in the future.
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're saying is the military exiting program, TAPS, did not set you up as well as it intended.
No, because what I ended up doing with TAPS is going into the truck driving school, because I then didn't have to go to work for 2 months because I would go report there in the morning instead of going to PT. No one at TAPS was like, are you sure that this is really what you want to do? No one sits you down and talks through your options. And even if they do, like, you have to be in a mind frame where you're going to be honest with yourself about, have I even thought about in detail what I want to do after this is over?
Yeah. I think the majority of people are just have such tunnel vision with wanting to get out, right? They got their blinders on and they don't care about like simple things like, where am I going to work? Where am I going to go to school? It's just, all I need is money and a roof, and I don't care. But that's a story for another time about why people feel that way. So I will leave the link to the newsletter below. I have dozens of articles about anything from veteran affairs to PTSD, interviewing other veterans about their experience. So you will find funny stories, memes, and now videos talking also about stories. Target audience. If you're watching this and you're like, hey, you guys are clearly hilarious. Who are these videos for? Well, I could say lots of different things, like veterans, active military family members, or people that just want to learn more about military stories. So basically that boils it down to, if you support our troops, you will most likely like this content. And if you don't, well, then I don't like you. I don't like you very much. Did I miss anything there?
No, I think that covers it. That's basically everyone in the world that can understand English.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about like common issues. I mean, I feel like every veteran who talks about stuff mentions transition, mostly because it's such a big and diverse topic. Yeah, and everybody deals with it differently. And then also like things that are currently going on. So for example, I'm currently almost done with an article that I'll be posting, which is about the 80,000 veteran affairs workers who are getting fired supposedly in August. and then we'll discuss that on the next episode, and just kind of talking about the stats, our opinions. I know a lot of people are upset, and I've done quite a lot of research. But Anthony, do you want to talk about what else this channel will pertain to?
Well, I think, we have a pretty good list already put together of things that we would like to talk about. I want it to be a combination of, let's learn something, let's talk about something useful and productive, but let's also have a good time doing it. Let's not get locked into a really specific scripted topic and not take the time to, share some of the funny anecdotes or weird things that happened while we were in, I don't know about you, but there are some crazy things that happened in my time that I was in. And I think it would be interesting to talk about some of that stuff as well.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of wacky stories that I've buried deep down, trying to forget I ever experienced. But for the most part, the channel will consist of veteran and military news. We're going to have guest speakers, so other veterans or anyone that just wants to talk about stuff. The newsletter and other funny content. And then also something I want to do is I like to review movies. So we're going to do military movie reviews. So for example, I just watched the Black Hawk Down documentary on Netflix about one of my favorite movies, Black Hawk Down. So we'll probably watch, you've seen that, right?
But yeah.
Okay, I was going to say. So we'll probably watch that.
That would have been a deal breaker right there.
Yeah. We'll watch that, then we'll talk about it. And there's already like a dozen movies in my head that are sick that need to be talked about. But other than that, is there anything else you want to mention?
Well, just if there's any other, content creators out there or owners of channels or blogs or newsletters or whatever it is that you do, and you want to do a collaboration with us, drop us a line, let us know, and, we can book you as a guest, plug your content. I think it'd just be good for everyone all around. And I'll get some interesting new perspectives. So it's not just you and me the whole time, every time.
Yeah, that's fair. So again, I think it's safe to say that the cadence of videos, I'm gonna shoot for 2 a week at minimum. If one of us can't make it due to our schedules, we might have like a guest for the other person. But the next episode, we will be talking about the article I'm writing of the VA getting gutted. Is
Yes.
the official term being used?
The VA being gutted.
Yeah. But I will also post that link to the article below for people who like to read it. If you don't like to read things, that's why we're talking right here. All right. So we'll see you guys next time.